Hi, welcome back to another episode of Geekified. Not even the number one agent of Her Majesty's Secret Service can hide from the horrible lockdowns. It's been a year, but now we have No Time to Die. No Time to Die, finally out in the cinemas. It's taken since I think its original release date was 2019, November 2019, its first original release date, and it was plagued with some issues. They had a loss of a director. Danny Boyle was originally attached. Danny Boyle left, but it's finally here. It's 30th of September. It was released. We got to see it a couple of nights ago, and we're here to discuss everything about it. And this is going to be quite spoiler heavy. So obviously there's quite an important couple of things that happen in this movie. So if you haven't seen James Bond yet, or you don't care about spoilers, feel free to carry on. But we're going to talk about a lot. So, No Time to Die, Daniel Craig's final outing as James Bond. What do you think, Mark?
I loved it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yep.
What about yourself?
Oh yeah, I thought it was really, really good. It's definitely high up on the top Bond movies I think I've ever watched. I think it's on par with some of the Connery ones. It's got just enough of everything, I think.
Yeah, it feels far more like on Her Majesty's Secret Service than any other Bond has, and on Her Majesty's Secret Service has a very different tone for Bond. It's the one where he gets married. It's the one where he has left the job. It is the one where, well, he's played by a completely non-actor actor. And so it's a very strange Bond, and people look back on that one not that fondly. I think On Her Majesty's Secret Service is very much up there in the top 5 best Bonds of all time.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was a very tonally different one of the Bonds. I think you've actually probably got, out of everybody, it's in the Geekified team, probably two of the biggest Bond fans are here just now. I know Tony really likes Bond, but Tony, we're going to speak to at the end of the episode. Going to speak to him afterwards and see what he thought. But I think you've got two of the biggest Bond fans here at the moment. So yeah. You're right.
And I mean, let's just say it. Spoilers from here on out, because it's too hard not to. The reason this Bond feels so much like On Her Majesty's Secret Service is it steals quite a lot of the plot beats. Bond is no longer on Her Majesty's Secret Service as he is retired. Bond somewhat has a family.
Yeah.
And then Bond somewhat loses his family, which is beat for beat On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Yeah.
And there's quite a bit of this is set in the snow, and there's quite a bit of that set in the snow as well. So there you go.
It did. It did. I think that's what I didn't actually pick up on it when I was watching it. It wasn't until I thought over the last day or so, I've been thinking about the movie, that I realised that that's exactly what it is. You're correct. It's everything felt very familiar, and it's not just because obviously it's one of the most famous franchises in the world. The entire film felt very similar, and it is. It picks up quite a lot, but I'd definitely say His Majesty's Secret Service is quite a lot loaned, borrowed, stolen from it, however way you want to look at it.
Interpreted, I would say. I still think we had this chat when we left the cinema the other night about why Danny Boyle was fired.
Yeah.
And obviously he was fired because, well, what he claims in was it Esquire magazine, he claimed he wanted to kill off Bond and the heads didn't want that.
Yeah.
And I think, so it's probably been hashed together from a script by one of the best writers of film in the world, Danny Boyle. And then they've probably mismatched it with other Bond scripts here and there to be like, right, how okay, we had a great script and we said, no, shit, he was right. The only way to end this movie is to, kill to kill him. Yeah, there we go. Biggest spoiler, Bond dies at the end of this. And
too late. We did warn you.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, I feel that the script, does it earn it? Yes and no. He could have got out of the scenario, but life wasn't worth living, and it's all about love, which is the exact same ending as on Her Majesty's Secret Service, but in that scenario, again, spoiler, his wife dies, not him. And so yeah, I think they just went to probably the biggest gut punch in the Bond franchise and was like, right, how do we one up this gut punch? And it's like, we'll just turn it around. And that's probably why it feels so familiar, because we've had it before, just not on Bond himself.
I've not talked to you since we actually seen the film, and when I left the cinema, I actually felt that I really, really, really enjoyed the film, which I did.
Yeah.
And now, obviously, the controversial part is, like we've just said, is James Bond dies at the end of this film, and it's not did he die? Can I get out of this? His ass was blown to pieces by loads of missiles hitting him, so he's dead. He's been and gone. There's loads of theories online saying, "Oh, he could have done that." No, James Bond is dead. He's definitely a goner. Now, when I left, I was thinking, yeah, I get it. It's a good way to finish the franchise. But then the more I actually thought about it, the more I started to think, this is James Bond. This is James Bond who has been going a bit with hundreds of women, doesn't really find attachments, but suddenly a woman 5 years ago that he left because he didn't really trust her, everything that happened with her, now he's fallen back in love with her just because she's had a kid. And now he's going to sacrifice his entire life, his life of being the most craziest, best spy that has ever existed in any spy agency in the world, just because he can't actually see his lovely future wife and child.
Yeah.
He could have still went straight back to the agency, still could have worked, still could have done everything, still could have continued his exact same life, but just he's not going to be able to. He could just do this. He could Zoom his daughter and go, "Hi, I'm really sorry we can't actually meet because I'd kill you." I think everyone would understand that, and the more I thought about that, the more I thought that's a bit of a kind of bullshit ending with doing that in that way.
Yeah, like, I mean, you're completely spot on. It was, I don't think the stakes in which he died were deserved. Like the fact that he'd only known the girl for less than a day. Think about it. Like he goes over to the cottage in the middle of the Norwegian woods, and it's already evening at that point, and the little girl goes to bed, and the next morning, 007 is on her way, and that's when he's alerted that they're coming to get him, sort of thing. So he has only known that girl by the point that he decides to sacrifice for himself for her for about 24 hours. And it's like, oh, I get it, that the whole idea of parenthood changes you. He did not know that was his daughter until 20 minutes before he blows his ass up.
Yeah. And what this is where the whole thing collapsed. The more I thought about it today, especially, I started to really think, I started to think, what could he have done? And I was like, he didn't actually have to die. He could have got out of there. He just didn't have to go back and see Madeline Swan or Matilda.
So, like, obviously, like, more spoilers, not that we've been anything but spoilery up to this point. Bond, at the beginning of the movie, Bond has been betrayed, and Spectre somehow know his position, and he decides it is Matilda? No, Matilda's the daughter's name.
Madeline Swan.
Madeline. He decides it was Madeline that gave his position away to Spectre. Again,
a bird. Can I just interrupt there? Sorry, it's a bird that he actually went to his ex's grave with, just because he's still not over his ex, Vesper.
Well, no. She forced him to his ex's grave. She tricked him into driving to that little town, and then she tricked him into going up to the grave, and that's why he thinks that she betrayed him. But it just turned out that Spectre just knew where he was. Like, that's genuinely the explanation is given later in the movie of, like, Blofeld sitting there all evil, just being like, "Oh, I kept my eye on you."
One eye.
Right, that's shit. But okay, I guess it is what it is. Yeah, this is a Bond movie for the not thinking man. Because the more you think about it, the more it will annoy you. And I actually loved it. I thought the action was great. As I said to you in the cinema, Daniel Craig has never given a performance as Bond that good. He actually felt like James Bond, not a generic action hero for once, And Skyfall, is debatable, but I would say these are up there together. And then Casino Royale is his best story, but I don't think he's a very good Bond in Casino Royale. So they're kind of all joint at top for me. probably, if I had to gun to my head, I would say it's still Casino, Skyfall, this, and then it's Spectre and Quantum.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie has a lot of flaws because it's kind of like Spectre was probably, it's one of the dullest Bond movies. It's really down there with a lot happens and the story somehow is still not that interesting. Spectre should have ended with him being happy and married and having a kid. And then we should have had the 5-year gap of him being retired. It should have been with his family, with his wife, with his kid. But instead, this movie begins with him fishing in a beautiful, I think it's a Bahamas island he's living on.
Bahamas he's in, I think it is, yeah.
And to be honest, like, I'm sorry if someone turned around and said, "Oh, there's nanobots in your blood and you can never see your family again," I'd be like, "Cool, I'm way back to my tropical house in the Bahamas." And
that's what I mean. This is the whole point. It was like, he is the best spy that's ever been in the world. He is number one. He could still consistently and continue to save humanity, but instead he just stands there because I can't see my daughter and my bud that I pumped 5 years ago.
Yeah, it really is. It's Spectre should have ended with that, like, family dynamic, so that this one would have had a 5-year time gap of him being a family man.
Yeah.
And it would have made so much more sense. It feels like it's unearned. The catalyst for him deciding that, all right, I need to die, isn't earned at all. And as much as it's quite well written and I really enjoyed it, and it didn't feel cheap or forced in the cinema, it is, the more you think about it, it feels cheap and forced.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's everything about this film I loved. I enjoyed every moment of it. I enjoyed all the Bondness of it. I enjoyed everything that was there. It's just the more I think about that ending, the more I think, don't think so.
Yeah, that's it. It's one of the longest Bonds. What is it? 2 hours and 47 minutes. I think it is.
It's quick.
And
it's almost hitting 3 hours.
Aye, and I don't think there was a single moment of it I felt bored. There's moments which are intentionally a decline in action and tension and everything, but that's the whole roller coaster of a movie storyline. There's moments where you could definitely have just not had 6 extra lines of dialogue, could have been cut here and there, and you could have probably taken 7 minutes off the movie. But I don't think none of it felt undeserved. A lot of reviews that I have read about this movie saying it's stuffed to the brim, and it's like, it doesn't feel that way. It feels like everything is moving at a constant pace. It never feels dodgy, never feels slow. I think I sat there the whole entire time in one position because it just, I was just so engrossed in the movie, apart from the people sitting to our left that were genuinely eating a fucking takeout's worth of food just from a Tesco's carrier bag the entire movie. And when they finally stopped eating, they started sniffing. They just sat there doing this. And it's like, go blow your nose. Like, seriously, don't, like, I don't know. I was saying this to you. This is a total tangent. I was saying this to you. For some strange reason, people have forgotten what manners are since lockdown, especially in the cinema. We've had, strangely, Suicide Squad, which was still social distance, was probably like the nicest cinema audience I've ever sat between.
Yeah.
No one really rustled, no one talked. I think there was a couple of cheers and things. It was a nice atmosphere. And ever since, I feel that somehow maybe what it was the people that were going when it was social distance were real true cinema fans. And now what we're getting is people that are just bored on a Thursday evening,
Likely. Yeah.
Because some of the audiences we've seen some of the releases in the last few weeks have been total arseholes.
Yeah.
That was a lot of swearing for that little segment. But
that's all right. You should see the last review we did. It took me about 40 minutes just to take out all the bleeping.
Fair. But just continuing the tangent for a tiny little story. Chris and I went to see Candyman together, and the guy 3 seats up from us kept farting. Like, I mean, Candyman's great, but the atmosphere and tension was completely broken every time you turned from the side of you, and you're just like, I mean, I shouldn't laugh because I'm an adult, but farts are funny, you know.
Yeah.
So,
And it
right,
was it did seem to get to the moments of everyone tension kept
yeah,
building. It
I
was just
can't.
kind of rising and like you're like dun 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 dun.
It was his farts were so timed to off the tension build that I genuinely think that they might secretly be in Candyman as a
Yeah,
laugh.
we just
Like,
need to listen to the soundtrack and see if the farts are in it.
because yeah, like there's an amazing one at the beginning. Remember that whale, the whale sound of like all the voices screaming at the beginning of Candyman. It's this haunting big sound, and it just goes, oh! And then just, and it was like, are you kidding me? You perfectly timed that for the drop. No sound, just a fart. And it's like,
I think he knew. I think he knew.
yeah, maybe
Yeah.
he'd seen it a couple of times and he was just there to screw with people now, you know? He's
He
got
knew
some
the moments
irritable
to
bowel
fart in.
syndrome, screw with them. I mean, I have irritable bowel syndrome, but that's also why I don't eat Mexican food before going to a cinema.
Yeah, which he clearly did. He ate
Yeah.
all the Mexican food.
Yeah. You just don't do it, guys. Don't do it. But yeah, so back to Bond. The family dynamic wasn't earned, sadly, as much as Daniel Craig and Matilda and Matlin all together were quite a cute wee family. It worked.
Yeah, it worked.
But give me 5 years of that.
Mm-hmm.
Let them have had the emotion, let them have the build, so it makes sense that he is totally gut punched when it's taken away from him.
Yeah. Did you notice all the bits? Because it was very, very obvious, all the moments that obviously Phoebe Waller-Bridge came in and did an extra edit to the script. It was very evident the bits that she did. And Phoebe Waller-Bridge is very funny. She's very, very comedic. She's very, very good at her timing, and it's all about that precise moments of comedy. And for me, it worked really well. It still had that old-fashioned kind of James Bond humor. You say humor now, it was funny back in the day, but it usually was quite rude or cheeky or racist or sexist. But back in the day, it wasn't seen as being as negative as it is today, which is obviously wrong. But Phoebe Waller-Bridge's timing, it did, like, I mean, even just the subtleties of the bit where he goes up to the desk, and the guy just looks at him for his name, goes, and he goes, Bond. And he goes, James Bond. Just the way like everyone in the cinema knows who he is, and then this guy's like, yeah, what's your name, mate?
Yeah, I think the big fear with Phoebe Waller-Bridge coming in is a lot of the tabloids referred to her inclusion as, to make it more woke.
Yep.
Which, strangely, the trailers for this Bond definitely wanted to sell themselves as woke. It was all about Niall. Her character's Naomi. I forgot the actress's name that plays
Lashana Lynch, I think it is.
Lashana Lynch. She's great, right?
Yeah, she was brilliant.
I came home that evening and I was like, see if you give me a spin-off, give us, I think give us like a franchise called Stories of like MI6, or the case files of MI6. And you can give us all these other characters, still give us like, Ben Wishaw as Q, and you can still give us Sirius Snape as, no, it's not. It's Voldemort, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Voldemort.
Voldemort as M. And
you see how geeks remember characters? We don't remember their names.
No, we just remember
all the
other
geeky films
characters.
we were in.
And they give us now Naomi Harris as Moneypenny and stuff. You can still give us all those characters, but you don't have to sell out the James Bond franchise to do it. Yep. You can have it like let's have a universe of this 00 agents. We can have, because I mean, like, we've got 006, we've had 007, we've had a reference to 008. So let's keep Bond as 007 and give us an amazing story with Naomi, because she's a great agent, and the trailer sold her as someone that kept just putting Bond down and belittling him, and it was very woke culture jokes, but she's not that in the movie at all. Yeah. Bond gets as good as he gets.
Yeah.
And to be honest, the respect between them builds really quickly to the point that they're actually like a really good pairing. And I think I said to you how good it would have been to keep both characters, make her 006 and recreate GoldenEye with her. You know, like just if she took over from Alex Trevelyan in a GoldenEye reboot, it would have been incredible because she's a great actress as the part. But yeah, this movie was very badly marketed, in my opinion. It seemed to be woke baiting, which is strange because let's face it, the general audience for James Bond is middle-aged white guys.
Yeah, no, it's 100%. It is. I'm not saying anything negative when we say things like that, and because I agree fully. It is. It's generally a middle-aged white guy that is going to go and see this movie, and having someone like a black woman like Lashana Lynch taking over the role of 007, I don't have any issues with it. I think it's absolutely great. But the way a lot of things were spinned, like you said, with the woke culture ideology of it was terrible. It just didn't work. And I think even that morning before we went to see the movie, this image popped up. We'll put it up here. And people were kind of saying, "Oh God, here we go, James on the back of a scooter. This is awful. This is going to be terrible." Even I was like, "Why is he on the back of a scooter?" But it was just, it makes complete and utter sense in the film. It's just a picture that was taken from a screen grab of a movie, and it works. It's exactly the way it is. But just because it looks the way it does, it was spinned into this woke culture. But I think that could be damaging for the movie, for the takings.
Yeah, I feel that whoever did the first two adverts completely missed the mark. They don't show Bond getting as good as he gets. He's getting it in the neck from all sides in that advert. And like just everyone seems to be slagging him and winning, you know. Whereas in the movie, actually, almost all characters have a very good mutual level of respect between each other. You know, like everyone works well together. The chemistry between the whole main cast is great. And there is nothing woke about this Bond movie because the inclusion of Naomi as 007 is done perfectly. She holds her own without belittling anyone. She's a great agent. She's physically demanding on herself in the role as well. She flings herself around in that first battle in Cuba properly. And it doesn't feel fake or forced or like they just brought in an actress for the sake of bringing it in. And the other one that people were worried about was, I'll never get her name right, Ana de
Armas.
That's it. Joy from Blade Runner 2049.
Geek reference.
Yeah. She's incredible in it. I was so disappointed that she's in like literally 13 minutes of it.
Yeah.
And she kicks total ass. She somehow does like a flying summer kick and picks herself up with two guns in her hand and still kicks ass, which totally tells you that those guns aren't real because most people could not do that. Not trained agents couldn't do that. Like guns are heavy and bullets have kickback. You can't
stop trying to bring logic into a James Bond franchise, Mark.
The scene with Anna in it is completely the Matrix. You know, she's doing stuff like Trinity and Neo, and it's really funny because Bond like gets flung through a window at that point, and he's kind of slapstick as Joy is perfectly smooth and cool the entire time, but she's so smooth and so cool, it does look like Matrix Revolutions. You know, it's not even the good Matrix.
I think that it leans into one of the jokes that she makes in the film, saying that she's only had a few days worth of training or a few weeks worth of training, is the fact that she's literally just flipping about the place and killing every bad guy that appears. And she's like, I've only had 3 weeks of training.
I kind of thought that line was going to be played as a joke up front, and then later on it would be turned out that it was going to be like a double cross, and she'd been like a Spectre agent for her whole life. And I wonder if maybe in a earlier version of the script that was the case, because let's face it, her character has not had 3 weeks of training.
No, yes.
Alone, the actress probably had to do 3 months of training to do that sort of stuff. You know.
Yeah,
so
it says, and one of the best bits is, and even in that fight scene, is when the other 007 just drops in and steals the guy and just disappears from him. It's like you've got Bond and this other agent sort of jumping about, flipping, shooting, killing people, and next thing you know, the other 007 just drops down out the ceiling and goes, "Oh, don't mind me. Because off she goes. Just perfectly
Yeah.
timed for kind of that comedy. So it worked really well again.
I kind of thought that like that is more spy espionage stuff than Bond has done in a long time. Waiting for someone else to pick up the target so that you can steal them easier is total spy espionage. I thought that 007 was played perfectly at that point, you know? Because let's face it, why do the hard work? Bond puts himself right in the middle of like every Spectre head leader to grab that target. Whereas Naomi as 007 just waits for Bond to be walking out the front door, yoink, bye. And it's like, that's how a spy would do it. Bond? Well, what was that about? There was no planning in Bond's plan. Just walk into the middle of a party and steal someone.
Stroll in, have a cocktail or two, and ask somebody to come with him. That was it.
I did enjoy that they did shots at the bar before reacquiring the asset. You know, that was funny.
That's typical Bond. That was a wee quirky things that were included that still gave it the old proper James Bond feeling of just having cocktails and then just pulling a couple of tequilas up and then the two of them necking it and then killing more people.
I think there's a brilliant line about Bond gets a shot in the neck from a needle and he says ouch, and Q says, you know, like, oh, you won't feel anything with a stiff drink. Shot in the neck, and he goes, yeah, I haven't had one for 4 hours. And Naomi just goes, wow, that's a long time. And it's Phoebe Waller-Bridge comedy, but it works so well. I never thought that Phoebe Waller-Bridge comedy would work so well in Bond, but it's kind of, well, I guess her comedy styling is very dry English, and that's what Bond used to be.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Phoebe Waller-Bridge isn't involved in the writing of the next one to keep that kind of feel again.
Yeah, I'm slightly more optimistic for Indiana Jones 5 now.
Yeah, I'm not particularly worried. I think she's a great actress. I just don't see how we can continue Indiana Jones without Indiana Jones. You know
well, yeah, the Indiana Jones fear doesn't stem from Phoebe Waller-Bridge being in it. It fears from the fact that are they just going to write out Harrison Ford, you know? And I think the tabloids were making such a big thing about, you know, Bond being written out of Bond. Yeah. That now we know that was complete nonsense and it was just to sell papers and whatnot.
Yeah.
I've got so much more faith in Phoebe Waller-Bridge because I love Fleabag.
Yeah. Fleabag's very, very funny.
So it was always my what you call it, my view of going into this movie was always tainted by all the articles about it. Oh, Phoebe Waller-Bridge had to come in and do this, and Phoebe Waller-Bridge was brought in to make it more woke and stuff. It's like, it's total bullshit. And I think from now on, I'm probably going to just avoid any of these websites because they're just going to take garbage.
I take a lot of it with a pinch of salt when I read stuff like this now, because it was completely opposite of everything that was ever written for this. Mm-hmm. It was complete and utter nonsense.
Correct. And I really hope it doesn't hurt the sales of the movie, because it's the first Bond in a long time that's been worth going to the cinema to see. You know?
Oh yeah, definitely, 100%. Obviously, leading into what happened at the end, James Bond blown up, dead. Obviously, we hung about, waited for the credits for that sign that came up as well at the end. So again, super spoiler alert. There's just one little tagline that appears at the end, and that is James Bond will return. Now we know that. We know that was going to happen. We know they're not going to drop the franchise, but it's the fact that they used James Bond will return, which obviously means there's going to be a recasting. We're going to get someone else, and it is just going to go do another story just with James Bond.
I was having a think about this, right? And I think that, you know, Bond has managed to have 25 good movies, some of them not as good as others.
Yeah.
And I don't think it needs to continue. It's had such a good run. And as I said, there's so many other stories that could be told from its universe that Bond himself should maybe just be allowed to stay there, especially being that, you know, they've said that it's not that code name stuff that Danny Boyle wanted. It's not code name. It's not multiple people. It's one person. So if it is one person and he's now blown up to smithereens, keep it as that. Keep it. Bond's gone now. Let's have, other stories from this universe. And you could maybe have like somber moments in other stories where someone says 007 and you see the heavy faces in the room, and it can pay homage to it, but not having to be it. Plus, that would open you up for totally different stories that don't need to be quite the same formula. Like the MCU, it's the same universe, but the formula isn't the same from movie to movie. You can have lighter hearted ones, you can have really dark and gritty ones, you can have brutal kung fu ones. Let's open it up. Let's have the case files of MI6. Name it something cooler than that, MGM, but give me a little cut, okay? Like, because I came up with it. None of you Hollywood fat cats did. Don't try to steal my idea. I will come to your house.
As usual, Geekified, you heard it here first. That's it.
I mean, the other thing I did think of the other night was how cool it would be if they did reboot Bond in that sense and go back to the original era, the Ian Fleming novel era, like, post-war, with all the big budget that movies have now. Like, I don't know if you saw the reboot of A Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Yep.
It looked amazing. Cold War era,
Henry
CIA,
Cavill, absolute legend.
Henry Cavill, KGB. It was cool. It was really good to see that again. And I wonder if the reboot of Bond, if it's going to keep it in this modern era, or will it move it back to, tighty whitey, like baby blue swim shorts, Sean Connery, DB5.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting.
I personally think that we're not going to get what we're all expecting. I personally think what's going to happen next is going back to the origins of Bond. I think it's not going to go to the pre-war. We're just going to get a new interpretation of Bond, but starting from when he was a very, very young guy in the army, say, when he's just getting his first cases and he's becoming a spy. I think we're going to get, everyone's thinking Idris Elba, Henry Cavill, all these different people. They're going to get the role. These guys are in their 40s. These guys are never going to get it. I think we're going to have someone who's 25 years old who is going to be Bond, and he's probably going to be Bond for the next 20 years, whoever they give it to.
Tom Holland for Bond.
I think that's a good call. I think that's a good shout. He's the right age. He is Spider-Man. Obviously, it doesn't seem that Bond franchises seem to like people with a lot of baggage or history or anything attached to them. But that's my interpretation. And coming up on the next episode, we're going to discuss who we think it is actually going to take over the mantle of James Bond, be it, like Mark said, in a Cold War era setting, or like I've said, it's just a new interpretation of a young Bond of today's era who's 25. But what actor is going to be most likely to get it? So that's the next episode coming after this.
My one problem with if it was young Bond set now is it's just Kingsman, whereas if you move it to young Bond post-war, you get to have cool period time, sets, dramas, locations. You can base it on real events and facts. It can be tied more into mankind history that way. Whereas if you were to make it young Bond now, I feel it would be nipping at the heels of Kingsman.
Yeah.
And Mark Miller nailed that with the first movie. Slightly with the second movie. As much as I still think it's a really fun movie, I just feel it was more of the same. And the first movie is a 10 out of 10 movie, so it's very hard to,
No, I agree with that.
And I can't wait to see the Kingsman Agency. Kingsman, that's it. This Christmas, because it's set during World War One.
Yeah, when was the origin of the Kingsman Agency?
When was the last time we had a spy movie which was fun and over the top set during World War One? We don't really get that sort of stuff, because usually, it's about the war, it's got to be dramatic and heavy, and I get why. But if you can still have fun with the movie, it can still be over the top action.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't wait to see that in the Kingsman.
Yeah. So there you go. Well, That's me, Mark. Now we're going to basically go over to Tony, and Tony's got a very interesting take on James Bond because he happened to be in a very special place a couple of nights ago as well. So we're going to go over and talk to him. But thank you very much, Mark.
Thanks for having me.
Over to me and Tony. Right, so you've had me and Mark discussing everything we thought about No Time to Die. Very interesting conversation there. And like I said, we're moving on to one of the other team who happened to be somewhere very interesting for a showing of No Time to Die. And I couldn't possibly have asked them to make a better entrance into this video than this. It is the one another Tony McGeever.
You've been expecting me, Mr. Somerville.
Don't say we don't make an effort for this show. Look
know.
at that.
I know.
Check you out, suited and booted.
I know.
Looking suave.
I know. Showered for the first time in a month. It's great.
Don't do that. I've got nothing on from the waist down, Tony. I just stick a t-shirt to do this show. So, tell us about the special event that you were at. Obviously, I brought that up. So, what exactly was it?
I was, what I would say, very lucky among the few. However, there was about 4,500 people there. I was lucky enough to be at the premiere of No Time to Die at the Albert Hall. And wow, it was incredible. It was a who's who of anything. Everyone was there. So it was incredible. It was really good to be at the event, for a number of reasons. One, it's good to actually be at an event. Obviously, the last 2 years we've had. And I think what a British film to bring back, I think, cinema, to really galvanise going back to the cinema.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's evident now. I mean, we're a good few days into the release of the movie now, and it is literally lighting up the box office. I know a few people that, obviously, because it's such a vibrant film, a few people have been to see it twice, even three. I know someone has been to see it 3 times because they wanted to see it all again. But yeah, what a film. So about the film itself, obviously me and Mark discussed quite a lot about the content, about its whereabouts it sits in the level of all the Bond films, and obviously Daniel Craig's swan song for the series. So what did you think of the movie itself?
Well, the great thing about James Bond that I don't have with any other film is I don't go into any Bond film with expectations.
Yeah.
Because I kind of know what I'm going to get. And then I'm always surprised or disappointed. Be that through all the Bonds throughout the years, from Dr. No 1962 up to No Time to Die. Because obviously, as Bond, as we all know, it's a regulated formula. To a degree, the great thing about sort of Daniel Craig's era is they've challenged those ideas, which I absolutely love, and we'll probably go into that later. So, and obviously, not being at the cinema for a while, actually, I think it was oh my God, it was the first time I'd been in a cinema. However, I wasn't in a cinema, I was at the Albert Hall. So it was such a weird juxtaposition being with 4,500 people in a space designed to resonate sound.
Yeah, I can only that amount of people. It's bad enough in a cinema, but that amount of people.
Therefore, I had to go and see it a second time to get that sort of enclosed, personal cinematic experience, which I'm glad I did. The film, I absolutely loved it. Ticked all the boxes. It was a great swan song. Obviously, they had difficulties with sort of like, I think they were just ending filming when COVID was happening.
Yeah.
But I think it ticked all the boxes. It gave Daniel Craig a very unique send-off that no other Bond has ever had. If you think about it, no one has ever had that. And to give him that, I think is quite an honor for, an actor, and, which is fantastic. And yeah, it was fitting, and yes, it was like I was watching like 3 separate films, but the ending was just...
Yeah, we discussed the ending in the first part of this, so we already kind of know spoilers alert for everybody who's watched it. We've already said it at the start of the video, or with me, Mark, as well. But obviously he dies. So this is the first time it's ever happened. James Bond actually physically dies.
did
in
he?
the film. Oh, I think, yeah.
We're not going there. We're not going there. There'll be some theorist or someone trying to explain how Bond could survive that. But
yeah, I know. I think one of the things that I discussed with Mark was the whole idea that closing off what has never been closed off before. It's the first time we're actually getting to see the end of a character's life who's supposedly immortal. We're constantly telling lots of different stories. Do you think it was right to actually finally close off, or show the final part of James Bond's actual life?
yeah, but I think that's a testament of how movie making and how the cinema has moved on from the 60s, the formula, the way business is conducted as well. And plus, I think, like the prestige of actors, and storytelling and, and this is what Daniel Craig's sort of era has kind of put into the franchise.
Yeah.
Because before, ticking boxes, making money, you go, you have a great time. But this is, getting more, getting to know who Bond was. You never got to really know that. And I think for that, you have to go back to, okay, we're not watching a James Bond film. We're watching a story about a man and his work and how that affects him and who he is and why he does the things that he does. So to do that, you do need to have that arc. And I'm quite glad that they were able to do that. So,
yeah, I think one of the things I brought up earlier on the episode, just to see what you think about it, is the fact that when I watched it, I thought that it was a really good ending, and I enjoyed the ending that he died. But the more I kind of, after I left, the more I thought about actually the circumstances of his death. James Bond forever has been this kind of recluse, been this guy who he was now, when we've seen him at the start of the film, he's living in the Bahamas on his own, quite happy. He already met Madeline Swan, but now this cocky, just spy who doesn't really have much care for life at all finds out he's got a daughter within a day. He's quite happy to sacrifice his life, and obviously he still could have lived. You know what I mean? It was like there must have been a way he could have still attempted to survive the cataclysmic event that was happening at the end of the film, but he would have still been able to live on and see his daughter and see his girlfriend or future wife, but just not touch them. But at the end of the day, he still had the option, and he still had the option of still being the number one badass spy that there is. Do you think that was probably, for me, I found that slightly off kilter with everything that was about James Bond. I didn't mind the fact that he died. I just didn't think it was real that he wouldn't try and save his life to continue living and doing things.
well, yeah, I think they did. I was walking away from because I went and seen it again last night, thinking I think they did miss a fantastic, yeah, it's great to kill him off. However, it would have been much more heartbreaking if he did live, and that the fact that he had to go the rest of his life not being able to touch his, like that's the one thing, like when they got in the boat, he kissed Madeline Swan, but he never kissed his daughter goodbye.
Yeah.
Or and it was like, that would have been more fitting that he's left with that burden that he can never touch or kiss his family ever again. That would have been more painful and much more, it would have been really great to see that, like them just get so close and not be able to.
They're not been able to do it, yeah.
Yeah, that would have been, it's a sad ending, but you kind of, I can kind of see why they went the way they had to do, for Daniel Craig finishing his era, and yeah,
I do. As I says, I agree with what we've done. I still like the story. I still really, really enjoyed the story. But the more I thought about the circumstances at the end, I thought, no, you're quite an arrogant spy. You've always been. That's just who you are. But yet you're quite happy just to call it a day on top of the roof. But you still could continue your work as being the best spy that the world has ever known, and just not see your daughter. But you just go, I'll just blow my ass up. It doesn't matter, does it?
I mean, I mean, out of all the James Bond's always littered with loopholes, and they've got to do that to suspense reality in a way. But however, that's probably the closest that they have got to reality. And I'm like, well, yeah, you could have gone off the island and went, okay, right, or even stop the rockets coming.
Yeah, there's always something you can do.
Yeah,
James
stop
Bond.
it. Right, I'm off it now. Okay, I can't touch it. We just send in the entire army, get the guy, and then we'll open up the blast doors and destroy it. Or
I'll just Skype my daughter.
Yeah, I'll Skype my daughter, and So
you're dressed like James Bond, and I've got a cat. I need to get my cat on the lap. Come on, big man. Yeah, so obviously, if you stayed right up until the end of the credits, there was a special message for the fans at the end as well, which came up that said, James Bond will return. So what we're going to do is we're going to have an episode for as many of us as we can get. We're going to put together a top 5 list of who we think is most suitable for the next James Bond. But is that what we think is going to happen? I mean, it did say James Bond will return. So what do you think will happen, Tony? Where do you think the whole story of this universe is going to go?
I remember Daniel Craig, and everyone says that, James Bond films are rare, but they make a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah.
And right now, cinema needs a hell of a lot of money to put input. So it's and even if you look, like I was looking back to look at how the franchise has evolved. So in 1962, Sean Connery made, I think, 5 James Bond films in 5 years, which is crazy. From the agent, I think his last, he was 32 years old when he made his first one, which is crazy. Yeah. And I think his last one, he was like 53 or something. Yeah, because the first 5 were then, and then there was big gaps. And it's, cinema's changed because obviously now we've got online platforms as well.
Yeah.
And, films can get made more faster. Yes, James Bond will come back, but I think like all things, we do need a gap period.
Yeah.
So I don't think we will see a new James Bond film for another 5 years.
Oh, that long? Okay.
Yeah. I think they'll start looking. Then again, that it always goes in with the casting. I mean, writing a James Bond film is easy. And nothing, there'll be writers saying, oh, it's very difficult. I mean, in terms of the formula, the hardest thing ever, I think, is casting. And it's always, and I think and that goes in part and parcel because it's very rare to get an actor who can do Bond perfectly.
Yeah.
Or hit the right qualities. And
Daniel Craig wasn't overly enamored by everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone liked him when he joined it, and I think the more movies he made, the more people realised, no, he's actually very, very good at being a James Bond character. Yeah, he's very good at playing him.
Well, people were like, okay, you're proving us wrong. Like I watched Layer Cake, and then if you watch Layer Cake, you go, that's James Bond.
Yeah. No, he's very, very good, and I'm very impressed, and I appreciate all the work he did.
So, but yeah, I think that comes in part and parcel. So it's all about because if they get the wrong Bond, and then what they usually do, they get the Bond that they think is going to work, and then they work around the actor who they've got.
Yeah.
So like if you look at Sean Connery, he was always known as the killer. So it was quite more action packed. Then you go to Roger Moore, he was known as being the lover.
Yeah.
All his films were a little bit more cheesy, a little bit more romantic, a little bit more suave. Daniel Craig kind of got a little bit of the both. So it does, depending on, again, James Bond's always reflect usually it's politically what's going on in the world.
True, very true.
The Bond, it's a combination of the actor you get, the politics, but also now, obviously, with No Time to Die, it's like the social aspect of what's going on in the world and not just politics. So getting those and trying to time that in 5 years' time is such a hard job to do. Yeah.
And so is there anything out of No Time to Die you feel that they missed? Something that just didn't hit well or didn't get right?
I don't know. The actor, is it Ana de
Armas?
Yeah. I mean, I loved that because I was like, who's that? I know her. And I went, oh my God, she was in Knives Out with Daniel Craig, and she's a phenomenal actress. And I can just imagine them being on set, going, oh, Daniel, I've always wanted to be a Bond girl. And he's like, just let me sort you out. She was
Oh, hi,
fantastic.
Barbara.
Yeah. Within what? She was in the film 5-10 minutes?
Yeah, I think that was I mean, we both discussed that with Mark. We said that was probably one of the best parts, but one of the most disappointing parts on the basis it was only 5 minutes and she was in and out so quick.
Great actress. She was funny. She was, typical, because I loved how they set it up. They're like, we're going back to a typical, James Bond girl, sexy girl. We're going to play, we're going to go way back. And then it's like, nah. She's funny. She's fierce. She kicked ass.
Yeah.
So, and it's just great to see that from her. I mean, she was incredible in Knives Out. And to see that, I'm like, God, I want her in Marvel now.
Oh yeah. I'd love to see a Bond film, a spin-off film of her.
Yeah.
Just stories
again,
of 007.
Well, there's a thing that I was having a conversation now. Obviously, there's so many like Marvel have done it. A big, massive franchise have shown that they can hold spin-off shows, and they've got formula and format. They've got, to do that now. They've got the platforms to do that. It'll be interesting if Bond got okay. Are we gonna, let's do a Bond film but without Bond?
Yeah. I think it would work. I think it would be amazing. You could follow all the characters. You could have a Money Penny just following the head office. You could have M going on his trips around the world, speaking to political leaders and stuff, and all the espionage.
Yeah, so you could have a political thriller, which kind of, well, I suppose, but not action. Like everyone's talked about the directors coming on board, and and we've talked about how we've seen each of the Marvel TV shows be a different genre.
Yeah.
It would, I think, if they are going to do, I mean, this series of Daniel Craig Bond's era, they made it more realistic, more believable that James Bond could exist in this world.
Yes.
He got up and all that, and it was, in the camera movements and things like that. I think, well, how do we reinvent Bond? Well, why don't you reinvent the actual genre of the film and how give it to someone who, can do all these different genres, or just be interesting. Really,
just get Kevin Feige in. Just get Kevin Feige. You're now in charge of the 007 universe. It's all yours, mate. That would be incredible. One last question. What was the last question I was going to ask? I forgot already. That's Market. I'll cut this bit out.
Yes, I am available for Bond.
That was going to be my closer. I was going to say that.
But I'll tell you what, true test of an actor is if you can say the name's Bond, James Bond, without smiling.
Yeah.
You're pretty there. Every time I say it, I just smile and laugh.
Oh, yeah, because you can't laugh.
Bond, So,
yeah. What was my question going to be? There's a question I asked Mark that I was going to ask. I'm asking everybody. Oh, yeah. So one last question, Tony. Obviously, right at the start of the problems when this was getting filmed, Danny Boyle was attached as the director. He even worked on set. He was there. He was doing the writing. Looked like everything was going A-okay. And then if you read a couple of the articles that's online, you can see that he was fired for wanting to kill James Bond at the end of the film. Now, that happened. So what do you think was the story of Danny Boyle then? Because obviously, did they keep his idea? Was it something else? Or was this some sort of mystery that's hidden under it all? What do you think happened?
Well, I would love to see who said that, because there's no way you never know why someone... I don't think he was fired. He was not like let go. As all these things, we've seen it in lots of films with the big franchises that, they just part. Who knows? I really don't know. And it would have been great to see. I mean, looking at that era and what James Bond was going down, kind of more realistic British, they wanted to make it more British feeling in a way instead of national at one point. So getting him on as one of the best British filmmakers, I could see why they did that, and it would have been great. But who knows? But I always think, Ian Fleming always said when they were casting Bond, they didn't want anyone to overshadow the character, regardless in direction or actor or anyone in terms of production. anyone involved can never overshadow.
That's very
James
true.
Bond.
It does feel that
Uh,
way. It feels as if it's never
yeah.
really been. It's always still about James.
Yeah, and so and maybe this is the element. Maybe they're going, "Oh, it's a great idea," and then maybe they quickly find out it just wasn't going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly interesting. I doubt it's something we'll ever be able to find out, because I'm sure that'll be kept hidden until Mr. Craig decides, Mr. Boyle decides to actually share that info. But I'm pretty certain we'll never truly know that one. But I do
But you
have
know-
one final question for you,
Oh,
Tony.
yeah, question.
That is, are you available to play James Bond?
I am, and I was trying to, I think I could do it. I just don't have the voice for Bond. To me, it's all about the voice of Bond.
Mm.
I'll probably discuss it in another video. All the amazing actors who could potentially play sex symbols, suave people, action people, and it's all about getting the right age for longevity. But I think it's always the voice needs to be
Yeah.
perfect for Bond.
So you're saying David Beckham couldn't play him? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, get a good voice coach, yeah. I mean, yeah. But what I really want to see, and I think I've done this in another video,
Yeah.
or maybe we did it in our discussion, but I'll say it now.
Yeah.
And this is, I have the best idea for, I probably have said it on this before, but I want to go to cinema and watch a film about a young army soldier, and he's out there doing his missions and stuff, and then he gets dragged away into something a little bit more political, and he ends up saving the world. And then he finds out at the end of the film that he has to go to Whitehall or somewhere to get an award or meet someone. And he goes into an office, into a desk. He goes, "Well done, son." And he goes, "Oh, thank you, sir. Here's your medal. By the way, what's your name?" And he goes, "The name's Bond, James Bond." So you don't know that you've seen a James Bond film, but it's like the early stages before he's even in the Secret Service.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, that's what I think is going to happen in the continuation of James Bond. I think they're going to reset it. But I think they're going to go back all the way straight down to when he was in his early 20s and literally joining the service.
Yeah, I think that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, I think they're going to take an actor who is probably in his early 20s and he's going to be locked in a contract for probably 25 years of his life playing James Bond, just to make sure they get a full arc out of him. I think that's what happened. But we'll talk a bit more about that when we're talking about the casting, which is going to come up very soon, where we get the whole team sending in videos doing the top 5 and then have a wee quick discussion at the end of it. Thank you very much for joining me, Tony.
No, thank you.
Thank you for putting all that effort. You just need a wee martini. We'll get you a wee martini.
I go to bed like this.
It'd be so funny if you just like, and it was just like a wee onesie.
In saying that, that's a kind of joke. I heard this from Daniel Craig as well. They always say that Sean Connery knew how to wear a suit, and Sean Connery got told the best way to wear a brand new suit, is to wear it and sleep in it overnight.
Oh, really?
That's the best way to wear a suit, to get it molded to you. So Sean Connery did that apparently with every single suit, and I think Daniel Craig did that. So that's a tip. So that's one of the best tips that the Bonds get or something, is they wear their suit to bed.
There you go, rounding off the episode with an unbelievably interesting tailoring fact. Yeah. There you go. But yeah, thanks very much for joining me, and we'll catch up with you guys on the next video. So thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
You can do this all day.